who would you? Yes, the lucky member in the audience, you, viewer 1, you might be the first person here. Hello! You are very special, thank you. But who would you want to lead you into battle? Think about it, keep that question in your brain, and at the end of the video, put it down in the comment section. There is a lot of things to think about when choosing a leader. There's a bunch of character traits that you want, and traits that you think you don't want, but actually end up being very beneficial in the long run for either yourself, for the team, or for the thing that you're working or fighting for. These guys are the best of the best, and they will carry you to victory. The only question is, are you up to it? And with these guys, I think you are. They will butter you up with a speech, and you will go on your merry way, even if it is certain death. You will feel like a rock star, Michael Bay music in the background playing and all. Obvious transition to Optimus Prime coming up. Psych, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna give you a curveball, and let's go on to my boy, the guy who probably has the most aura restock points of all time. He picked himself up out of the gutter and put himself on the Hall of Fame bracket. And of course, I am talking about Scott Summers, also known as Cyclops, the best leader in Marvel, Scotty. And to kind of give us a bit of a timeline so you know what we're talking about, we're gonna go back towards the 2000s era of Marvel, and depending on who your favorite character was, this was the best time or it was the worst time, because Marvel was acting like a literal terrorist and terrorizing you as you slept. But either way, at this point in time, Scott had to deal with the ramifications and the ending of House of M. Mutant kind as itself, as a whole, was broken. 98% of mutants lost their powers overnight or they were dead, and the dream of a peaceful coexistence between mutants and humans died with them. The Xavier Institute itself wasn't just a school anymore, it was a shelter for an endangered species. Imagine that, the next evolution of humankind, the mutants, were literally Homo superiors, by the way. They were talked about as if they were an animal going extinct. Isn't that insane? At the center of all of that was the pressure that only Scott Summers himself could bear, because he was the only one obligated to carry that weight on his shoulders. But at least at the time, he also had Emma Frost at his side. Xavier, he was gone again, and the enemies of mutant kind, they were already circling in the water as if they were sharks. They smelt and felt and tasted the blood, and they knew that this was a good opportunity to strike back. Even normal people, there was a bunch of anti-mutant rhetoric, on top of the fact that groups like the Purifiers were growing bolder by the second. Governments themselves were also being a lot more sneaky, rebuilding the Sentinel program. And if you know anything about Sentinels at all, you'd realize that this wasn't some sort of trying to protect them sort of mentality. It was more of seeing an opportunity. Oh, the mutants themselves, they are very low in numbers. How about we commit a genocide? There's not that much left of them, and we could just get them out of our hair. But of course, they have to wait for the shot to fire, the gun to smoke, so to speak. Every major villain there was, from Mr. Sinister to the Marauders, they were ready to pull up with the smoke. And Cyclops and Emma here, they were on the back foot. They turned the mansion into a refuge, and then they ended up opening the doors to any mutant out there left on Earth, while sending the less powerful, or just even the characters that had no powers themselves, home for their own protection and their safety. The government then stationed those same Sentinels on their lawn, supposedly as a way to, quote-unquote, protect them. We know you're full of it, government. You don't gotta play two-faced. Anyways, Scott looked at the situation, as you and me would, as being in a cage with a bunch of armed guards. This was the world that Cyclops inherited, and it made him a lot more, I don't know if grounded is the best word, but battle-hardened. He was ready to do what was necessary, because the dream, the Xavier dream, that didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was fighting for survival. That shift is what I like to call Commander Cyclops, because it changed him. Instead of being that strategic team leader, he is now a political, or at least a military combatant, who is now in the field commanding his units. This version of Cyclops learned that you had to make the impossible choices, and nobody else is going to force your hand, so you might as well put in the energy to do it yourself. And this starts off with a baby, the birth of Hope Summers, and this was the first mutant born since M-Day, so this was a big deal, and it threw the world into chaos. She wasn't just a child, she was the future of their entire species. The symbol itself that mutants could actually survive, they could come back. They weren't done just yet. So when she was actually kidnapped by his own son, no less, Cable, who claimed that he was trying to take her into the future so that she would be safe, Scott did not hesitate at all. He had that dog in him. He reformed the X-Force, a Black Ops kill squad, to hunt down Cable. And looking at Cyclops from a leader perspective, as somebody who wants the mutant race to thrive, you'll be like, yo, this guy does what needs to be done, no matter what family bond there is. But as a father, that is a completely different perspective. Like, you are crazy, my boy. Why would you ever do something to that degree? But this shows you the first great moral line that Cyclops crosses as a leader in this era that only gets a lot worse in the Revolutionary Era, which we will cover in a separate video. Sorry about that, guys. But this wasn't just the X-Men anymore. Their mission wasn't to defend the world from threats as it was years prior. It went further than the Mansion this time. Wolverine led a team in the field, but every order had Cyclops' signature on it. He better have some good handwriting. And the tragedy about all of this is that he is kind of right. What I mean by this is that his idealism was gone, and now it's in place of somebody who is willing to get blood on his hands if it meant one more day, sorry Peter, of safety for his people. And yes, while you may be uncomfortable with it, hell, he is as well. He might even make you do something that you would actually regret, but at the end of the day, it's for the greater good of mutant kind. You'll never have to question his belief to his people. When Bishop actually betrayed the X-Men trying to kill Hope to prevent a dark future, Scott's paranoia started to make more sense. Bishop infected the Sentinels guarding the school, and the Mansion itself was destroyed in the chaos. Xavier was shot in the crossfire, and it felt like the end of everything. He was put in a lose-lose situation on a precipice of collapse, and he had to pull all the pieces together. This was just the cards that he was dealt with, and he's playing his best hand. And thankfully, Scott did not break. Instead, he led the surviving mutants to the West Coast, and one of his best decisions, in my opinion, to San Francisco, offering them a safe haven. This was a city that, at least for a while, accepted them. Cyclops took it and built a community. He sent out a global call to every mutant on Earth saying, come here now, this is your respawn point. And it worked. They had stability, they had unity, and they had a leader. Those three things is what you need to run a nation. But with every great nation under fire, there is going to be a war and some conflict, but not in the way that you expect. It actually came in the form of Skrulls. During Secret Invasion, they invaded Earth, and Cyclops was forced to prove his mettle, what kind of commander he really became. The Skrulls were cut off from telepathic communication and flooded San Francisco with soldiers, and they expected very little resistance because who the hell is in San Francisco? In the Marvel Universe, everybody is wrapped up in New York in their little NY bubble. But Cyclops, he fought back with guerrilla tactics using teleporters and hit-and-run assaults to tear down that invasion piece by piece. It was brilliant, kind of cold, but it was effective, it was brutal, but then it led to one of his darkest calls yet. He ordered Beast to find a weapon capable of wiping out the Skrulls entirely, and after days of research, they returned with one option, something called the Legacy Virus, and this virus would be modified to only attack Skrull DNA. But the dark veil over all of this is that this was the same bioweapon that once devastated mutant kind. If deployed, it would annihilate an entire species. Genocide, plain and simple. Beast himself hesitated. He reminded Scott that this wasn't who they were, there was another way. And he actually says something that I didn't expect. He says, your conscience is one of the things that I value most about you. Don't ever stop challenging me. This moment right here shows us that even at the brink of atrocity, there is something still deep inside him that remembered the dream and the belief that he wasn't just a one-man army, somebody who can take multiple perspectives and actually analyze it and put it in effect. And this was great because ultimately Cyclops did not release the virus. He was really close to doing so, and it would be very bad PR because this would still be an ethnic cleansing, similar to what people are trying to do to the mutants, so this would just make them complete hypocrites, even though it was for the greater good of everybody on Earth. But it shows you that he was still able to weigh the decisions and pull back. That's what separates Scott from Magneto or any other hardline leader. He's willing to crawl through hell to get to his goals, but at the end of the day, he is a man who believes in peace. And by the time the X-Men established something called Utopia, a floating island off the coast of San Francisco, Cyclops had become something sort of like a head of state. He ran logistics, defense, politics, diplomacy. He dealt with Namor, or Namor, depending on, you know, if we go back in time, travel back to before Wakanda Forever happened, Magneto, and the mutant terrorists who sought asylum. He balanced compassion with very ruthless calculation to the world. He was becoming the face of a militant mutant movement. To his people, though, he was the only reason why they were still alive, and that is the paradox of Commander Scott Summers' Cyclops. He saved his people by becoming the kind of man he once swore that he would never be. He was a leader who understood that the dream itself was dead, but he refused to let the species die with it, a man willing to bear the moral weight no one else could. But by doing this, it has led to very effective results because every single risk that he's done, it had a purpose to give his people a future. He is not noble, and definitely at this point in time, he's not spotless. He is necessary, not evil, not good, necessary.
I hacked the motion sensors.
But how about the best leader in DC, folks? Dick Grayson, Nightwing. I know that is a bit controversial to many, but you have to think about it. There's Batman, there's Superman, and there's Wonder Woman. A lot of people will tell you that these guys are either better strategists or they're better at, I don't know, inspiring others. And yes, while that might be true, this guy, our boy Dick, it is not funny. Did I just laugh at my own joke of somebody's name that I knew since I was like 6 or 5 years old? What am I doing? But either way, back on topic, relax, Nate. But what makes Nightwing special is that he is the connective tissue of the DCU. He's been on so many teams, or at least he's interacted with a lot of heroes. He's been on the Titans, the Outsiders, he's worked with the JSA. Hell, he was even trusted to be the first person to lead the Justice League if the team ever fell apart for whatever reason. And in the Obsidian Age arc by Joe Kelly, which I would recommend his entire Justice League run, but that right there, those like 6, 7, 8 issues, it was one of my favorite experiences ever reading comics because in the present we had Nightwing and his team of like new reserve members like Green Arrow, like Firestorm, like Etrigan the Demon, like the Atom, Zatanna, and then we had stuff going on in the past, and the link between these both divergent timelines was Kyle Rayner, one of my personal top 5 DC characters along with Nightwing, so seeing both my faves work their asses off in one of the best arcs of JLA brought a tear to my eye. It was so good. All the sauce of that book was concentrated in that one moment, but I digress. What makes Nightwing such a great leader, in my opinion, is that he's very direct and he's very honest. He's very straightforward. He will tell you exactly how it is. He will not sugarcoat anything. He'll tell you what you need in the most short way possible so that you could do the best job. On top of being very adaptable, you could throw any hero in his way, in his sort of field, and he will take them under his wing, his Nightwing, and then make them operate within his plan. They will be under his little umbrella, and they will work at 100% efficiency, 110% actually, because Dick himself is a perfectionist. And this is something that was drilled into him ever since he was a little kid. I remember reading Batman and Robin Year One. This year, by the way, it just ended. A really good book by Mark Waid and Chris Samney. And I remember Dick detailing his experiences of being a showman in the Flying Graysons. It was hard work. Ever since he was 3, he was burning his hands, fingers, just doing the tightrope. And he was doing it for hours and hours a day. He was driven. He had motivation to be the best even as a literal like speck of dust as a child. And that is something that carried on with Batman. Having 2 sets of parents, I mean, I guess, is that 2 sets? Where's Batman's wife? I don't know. Single dad. But having like 2 sets of like family figures in your life who are also very driven will do something towards you, right? It's kind of like affirmation. These people that I loved are like this, and this man that took me in that I love as well, just as much, even more now. I've known him for more of my life than I've known my parents, which is kind of sad to say, but both of them were very superhumanly on task. And this transition to Nightwing himself, he is always moving, he always has to get stuff done, he is very productive. Even when he's injured and sick, he will put on a detective show on right in front of him that's about real life crimes and mysteries, and he would solve it and then call it in, so that he is still on patrol even though he is technically out of commission. That is what makes him so special. He carries the slack of everyone around them by pushing them to carry their own slack. Does that even make any sense? But he allows no one in his field to be sloppy, and they might be annoyed at him then, but in the aftermath of everything that's done, when they save the world, when they save the planet, when they get rid of that alien invasion, when they stop Trigon from taking over the Earth, when the Brotherhood of Evil gets sent back down into their cells, that's when you realize that he only wanted the best for you, and slowly but surely, he was hammering away at your negative traits so that you didn't have to deal with it yourself. Do you know how much of a W man that is to slowly but surely do something to the point where you don't have to worry about it anymore, so that when this team is actually disbanded or something happens, because that is what happens in superhero media always, you'll be left with something very positive. It's possibly the most beautiful and healthy relationship that you could have with a teammate. Yes, he's cheery. Yes, he likes to make jokes. Yes, he's serious when he needs to be, but he also has an Atlas complex. He has flaws of his own, but it directly helps with your own mental health. I would like to follow him because he tries to make sure that all of his business and his baggage and trauma stays with him. Even when people try to pry it out of him, he doesn't want to put that burden on anyone else. Think about it. If you're thinking about his problems in the field, you're not going to be as efficient. That is his mindset. He doesn't want you to die out there. But speaking of dying, crazy segue, he's more than likely to be very protective of his team. Even if he barely knows you, he's able to build connections really quickly, and he will see you as a sister or as a brother, and he wants to get you home safe at the end of the day. So if he has to, he will make the sacrificial play. He's loyal to his cause as well to his friends and family. Without question, he will throw himself into the battlefield if he feels like somebody else might get smited. Bah! Right in front of his face. TikTok, frying my brain. As we speak, you're seeing it in 4K. Actually 1080p, we are not that rich, but this has led to a lot of people around him giving him a lot of trust and goodwill. The superhuman community loves this guy. They believe that he is one of the best heroes in the business. Everyone from the JSA, the old guard, to the newest guard there is, Young Justice. The amount of glaze this man gets is insane. Let me read off some glaze just for you from characters from different parts of the DC globe. Here we have Hawkman in the shadows saying, next to Superman, Dick Grayson is the one guy alive that every other crime fighter trusts. I want to be behind this guy, bro. He is going to make sure that I am playing to my best ability. He actually might be the LeBron James of superhero characters when it comes to being on teams. Nightwing. He is one of the best, the only one I could have picked to lead you. He will honor you. He will make you champions. This is what Batman says as a final goodbye video call when Dick takes over the Justice League. Donna Troy herself, one half of the Wonder Twins, recounts Nightwing took the lead, as he always did. It was one of his greatest gifts, his ability to inspire. Nightwing is always better at leading teams than I was, and she is a pretty good leader herself. And I needed him here, rallying the Titans and the Outsiders, readying them for the battles to come, and just for regular cleanup. He's getting everybody organized and on guard, and for one more showing, because I know for anyone who's a Dick Grayson hater is going to hate me right now for the amount of glaze that I am doing. Let me make a cinnamon roll, gosh. But he says, what can Dick be thinking? He might be a machine, perfection in a mask, with unparalleled leadership skills. But this is over the top. So you know that he is ready to do crazy things if it meant victory. On top of the fact that he, just like Cyclops, also has a dark side, and he's willing to get things done in very morally dubious manners if it is required. And I'm talking about the very underrated run by Judd Winnick, also known as the Outsiders, when Dick was taking over this team, and it leads to him having a confrontation with Superman, with him saying, I want this to stop. I can't do that. You mean you won't do that? Yes. I never thought I'd have to explain to you the difference between what's right and what's wrong, and I never thought you'd stand in the way of somebody trying to help people. Tell him. Is that what you think you're doing? You save the world, I'm trying to save a few corners of it. Corners which your hands are too big to reach. If I have to scrape my knuckles to get it done, then that's the price I have to pay. It's not your knuckles getting scrapped. You're hurting people, Dick. I can't allow that. I'm hurting bad people, Superman, and forgive me, I don't need your permission. And he is bluffing here, and there's nothing in this box, but once Superman sees a lead box, he automatically thinks that there is kryptonite in it. So this was a power play because he can't see through it. He doesn't know what it is. He doesn't know that Dick is really just acting to the best of his ability. Oscars, where are you at? And he says, no, it hasn't come to this, but I need you to let me do this. There are things that none of you are willing to do, things that have to be done for the common good. I will do those things. And Superman just shrugs it off by saying, fine, for now, but you are getting very close to a line that I will not let you cross, because you have to remember, Superman is that really fun uncle. He's known Dick ever since he was a kid, so obviously he knows what he's normally like and when he's tweaked out of his mind. Thankfully, he has the willpower to never be fully consumed by the darkness. But during this era, what I really loved is that it got to the heart of so many issues that we experience in the real world, and Nightwing being based enough to take it head on. He fought against drug traffickers, sex traffickers, those who would abduct children. He would actively fight against terrorist threats, go up against supervillains who were planning to launch nuclear codes from the other side of the globe, infiltrating nations just for the sake of replacing their military leaders and even their presidents for the sake of planting somebody in that will actually do the job right. And even if they weren't somebody sanctioned by themselves normally, they would show what happened to their predecessor and actively threaten them that this is what is going to happen to you if you don't follow what we say. If you end up keeping any of the agendas that this man implemented, you will experience the same fate. You'll have to live on an island by yourself and fend for it. They threatened him because they don't have somebody that they're going to sanction. They're not going to get an American person and put them overseas over there. That just doesn't make sense. But they can threaten the replacement as much as they want without touching a hair on their head. Nightwing knows the game. He knows how it's played, and he knows when he has to be nice, and he knows when he has to get down and dirty. Those two shifts in his personality and mood is what makes him such an effective leader, because you can throw him into any situation, whether that is a traditional superhero team-up, whether that's getting a team of teenagers, whether that's working with literal elder superheroes, or even being put on Black Ops teams to guide people to fight in the shadows to do things that traditional heroes would not. This guy right here, Richard John Grayson himself, he gets it. He understands that you have to be different depending on who you're working for, but at the same time, he influences everybody to meet him at his level, systematically changing those he works with to create a better team dynamic. Out of everybody here on this list, I would want to work with him the most. On top of the fact that he is straight up a comedian, I would be laughing every single day. That sounds like a good job to me, but what do I know?
I'm Optimus Prime.
Yes, sir. You know, honestly, if I wanted to, I could just play like a bunch of Optimus Prime speeches and just leave it at that. That's all you need. Just hearing him speak makes you want to follow him into battle. I'm honestly tempted at this very moment to just play the ending of Transformers 1, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, he deserves to be on this list. His voice actor also does a good job. What's his name again? Somebody's probably like yelling at me in the comments. I'm typing it right now. Optimus Prime. A voice actor. Peter Cullen, yes, Peter Cullen. His voice is smooth like butter too. He could just read any scripture I want and I'll be transcending into heaven as we speak. Either way, before he was Prime, he was Orion Pax. To kind of give you a breakdown on where his personality and his ideology really stemmed from. He was a data clerk and he believed in fairness and accountability. Well, with those traits right there that you believe in, that's a pretty strong foundation. But his story doesn't begin with greatness as you might expect. It's very humble beginnings. Wrapped up in idealism, Cybertron itself was falling apart under corruption, inequality, and just a bunch of class warfare between ruling elites and the laborers. And Orion's early leadership, though, wasn't about commanding armies. It was about listening, right? He was a bureaucrat. He believed in justice in a world that kind of forgot about it, and that moral clarity right there is what drew the attention of the Matrix of leadership and what made him very dangerous to those in power. And when Orion finally became Optimus Prime, he inherited a war, so he was already at the front and center. He had to go and play fast and play hard, and it was very overwhelming as well because it was something that already consumed numerous generations. Megatron, once a revolutionary himself, had turned his fight for freedom into tyranny. So what does Optimus represent? It's something that Megatron was supposed to be, a leader who could inspire change without succumbing to hate. And this moral contrast is what defines their relationship and also their leadership strategies. Megatron, through fear, if you don't bow down to me, I will shoot your head off. Optimus Prime leads through trust, and that creates better synergy between you and your players on the field. Kind of look at them as a coach on a sports team. If somebody fears you, there's going to be a lot more pressure and a lot more anxiety on your side that prevents you from playing up to your true capabilities. But if you know the person on your field is very humble and recognizes that people make mistakes and knows that people will have bad and off days, and they trust you to do your best even though that might actually be your worst, they still believe that you're giving 100% where your capacity is 50, those are the people that you want in your corner, because it tells you that he is a commander that sees strength through restraint. In the War Within comic books, when many Autobots were kind of like doubting his ability to lead as if they had any right to do so, he refused to fight Megatron on his own terms. Instead of that, he focused on protecting civilians and minimizing casualties, even when other people thought of his retreat as cowardice, as if he wasn't strong enough to stand up against Mega. He saw it as strategy, valuing survival over pride. He's not a warlord, he's a protector, trying to end a war that never should have started in the first place. And that same philosophy carries into one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Transformers Prime. The intro is so good. I love that show, man. Guys, if you haven't done yourself a favor, the scene where Bumblebee gets his... I can't even spoil it. But there was also a Transformers Prime video game that I loved. It was kind of like a beat-em-up arena 1v1 fighter type of video game, but I knew it, so, you know, and you didn't. That kind of makes me better than you. Now I'm joking. But in this series, he was faced with an army of Decepticons, as he normally does, but he had a very fragile, small group of Autobots to work with, and that made it so that he had to weigh the cost of every decision. There was like only 5 other characters to work with, so because of that, he had to put in as many skill tree points as he had into his ability to delegate, right? There was RC, there was Bulkhead, there was Ratchet, and there was Bumblebee, and each of them was given a purpose, because all of these agents are people that he trusts to act when necessary. And through this, he ends up finally coming face to face with Megatron, and I remember him saying something along the lines of, "You didn't betray me, you betrayed yourself." And this line right here is what I think captures what makes his leadership so special, because he doesn't see war as victory versus defeat. He sees it as, okay, you have become corrupted by your own vices, right? You believe all of these things that you do is for the betterment of your strategic power and just becoming stronger as an individual. He sees it as, okay, that is what you bring to the table. Let's face it against my conviction. Let's set up some chairs, play a game of chess, and see whose ideology breaks first. Every version of Optimus here, though, struggles under the same truth. To lead is to sacrifice. That is the burden of the throne. In the films by Michael Bay from 2007 to 2017, I believe, at least my perspective, is that Optimus bears the burden to a near like religious degree. He's not perfect though. He doubts, he grieves, he even lashes out, but that's what makes him quote-unquote human. He even says there's only one future for our kind, yours and mine together. So he's speaking as somebody who's seen both sides of that coin. He's seen hope in its most purest aspect from humanity, while also seeing the despair that they deal with on a daily basis. And just like Superman himself, he looks toward tomorrow, right? To preserve the chance of peace for those who will come after him. He is not about to let cynicism win. Hello? Are we weak? No. It's about defiance in the face of tyranny. Something that might seem more dominant to you, to him is all about biding your time to see the Iron Fist eventually collapse. He is the philosopher of war. In the IDW Transformers comics, we see a wrestle for something far more complex. Post-war leadership, right? After the fight ends, Optimus has to not only govern, but to command. He tries to unite the Cybertronians, the colonists, the humans, under a single peace effort, only to realize that peace itself actually brings about its own challenges, its own politics, its own distrust. He begins to understand that leadership isn't just about making these decisions in a crisis, it's about making those decisions the right ones, when people are no longer with you, there's kind of like a haunting beauty to it, isn't there? Like how IDW frames it. It's a leader who's like fought for freedom all of his life. What do you do when you get there? It's kind of like the Captain America situation, but like inverse. Captain America, when Ultron spoke to him, Ultron's thesis of Cap, he's like, you're a soldier in an era of peace, acting like you don't need a war to survive. Optimus is more like, well, is this what I really asked for? He discovered that peace could feel more fragile than war itself in that setting. How crazy is that? Even in the real world, if we're going to take a step back away from the fiction, look away from the screen, guys. Your eyes are probably hurting you at this point. Do any of you guys invest in those framed glasses that kind of cut away the blue light? Does those even work? Somebody let me know. But we live in an era of peace, quote unquote peace, and that has led to a lot of confusion. In war, it's really, really, really bad, but technically a silent war is going on as we speak right now. It doesn't have to be as abrupt and as in your face as, of course, the Palestinian or Ukrainian conflicts, but there's stuff going on right now that makes it very difficult to live as a human being on planet Earth right now. It really makes you wish that Optimus Prime was real, because his decision to merge Earth and Cybertron, their interests, despite of course the mutual distrust on both sides, shows you as a leader that he thinks beyond race, planet, or faction. He's not just the leader of the Autobots, he's trying to be a leader for everyone. Effectively, he's the spark that never dies. That is his legacy. It transcends species and setting because it's rooted in moral endurance. If the status quo is might makes right, he'll show you that that doesn't make you the smartest or even the strongest. It makes you somebody who lost faith in others and in turn yourself. And there is no greater sin. Do you think I would get a copyright claim if I played Attack on Titan music? Probably, and I do not want to take that risk because I'll have to upload this video twice, and no one wants to upload a video twice. The struggles of being a YouTuber. I'm going on crazy pills. Either way, who would be the best leader from Attack on Titan? Who do you think? The only option is my boy Erwin Smith himself, the commander who I believe kinda gambled with humanity's soul. He wasn't somebody who was like born into power, I would say. He earns it though through intellect, through conviction, through a lot of audacity, to say the least. His first moments in the Survey Corps, he saw what other people refused to see, right? Humanity isn't just dying because of the all big, bad, and mighty Titans. It's because the leaders that they have are cowards. They're all weak. Where most soldiers will try to like cling on to their survival, Erwin chases knowledge. His father, in fact, had a forbidden theory, an idea that got him killed. It was the idea that there was something behind the walls. That was the truth that both of them wanted to find, and it was of so much importance to the monarchy that they erased it from humanity's memories, and they quieted that spark that was ignited within his father. That little bit of rebellion was quieted. But this shows you two things about Mr. Erwin here. Truth is worth dying for, which we'll come back to. This does become full circle later on, and that leaders must be willing to bear the weight of every death that pursuit demands. Now, I know that sounds very psychotic on some mustache man type beat. Like, I know this sounds weird when you say it out loud, but it will make sense in the end, okay? I promise it. And if it doesn't, feel free to call me crazy in every single comment section. I know you do not have the willpower to do it. You do not. It's not gonna happen. So I am willing to play that bet, but a leader is only as well defined as their outcomes. And Erwin here doesn't pray for victory. He designs that, bro, right on that blueprint. He is on his way to make plays. If you look at the way that he uses people, I know he sounds like a villain when I describe him. I am not trying to do that, but in the 57th Expedition Beyond the Walls, his tactics redefine the battlefield. He molds fear through, chaos, right? Through precision. We have signal flares, decoy formations, baiting Titans into traps, all while using the battlefield as his makeshift chessboard. Every single soldier is a piece, and Erwin never hesitates to sacrifice his pieces if it means checkmating the unknown. And yes, that was a bar that took me a while to write. And most of this isn't even scripted too, it's just a bunch of jot notes. But that is a very ruthless, if not effective way to look at your teammates. But the reason why everyone follows him is that he looks at his own life in the exact same way. He's not going to sacrifice people for no reason, and he will tell you if you're going to go in a suicide mission to save the most lives. You have to accept that you're going to lose some. It's a truth that he knows that a lot of leaders just don't have. They can't stomach it, but it's the burden that he must carry. Every loss definitely cuts at him deeply. He's not an emotionless psychopath, but this is what separates Erwin from other characters like Pixies or Nile, right? He doesn't find peace in compromise. He finds purpose in doing the impossible for his men to overcome the odds. His symbol that he projects onto the world is inspiring the unthinkable. Even when your back is against the wall, his true brilliance shines through, right? His speeches don't even promise survival itself. They promise meaning. Remember that line that he gave out when the cavalry was just charging towards the Beast Titan? He was distilled into the single act. This is what everyone remembers him for. He's like, my soldiers don't yield when they come across the cruelties of this world. My soldiers scream out. My soldiers rage, bro. I'm so hyped. I'm just going off the play-by-play slideshow in my mind, and I'm jumping off the walls. This is how good of a leader this man is. It shows you that this man is kind of delusional, but you have to be delusional, right? He's giving himself up to something that's greater than life itself, the illusion of purpose. That moment when everyone is just riding towards certain death to their graves, he rides first. He's in front, because leadership, to him, isn't about surviving. It's about justifying the dead who followed you this far. You're not about to disgrace the people who've fallen by acting like a bitch. You know what I mean? That is not how the world works under the mind of Erwin Smith. And this right here is what prevents anyone from doubting his conviction. He's a visionary. His dream of truth is beyond any cost that they could pay ends up seeping through all of the recruits, all of the members of their division, until they believe what he believes. And when Levi gives him the choice between becoming a Titan and to see the truth that he fought so hard for, or dying as a martyr, you could see the cost of all of his dreams. He's exhausted, as I would be too. He sacrificed his friends, soldiers, and even at times his own humanity for the sake of a dream that he may never fully realize. And that's the paradox of Erwin himself. He leads because he can't stop. It's like an adrenaline junkie. If we look at somebody like Dick Grayson, Nightwing, that man is an adrenaline junkie. He does space drops all the way down to Earth to catch up to a high, to feel a level of euphoria that he won't normally experience. And this is what makes him very unorthodox in his teaching and his leading methods that make him very unpredictable. For Erwin here, he might be a lot more structured, but it will not stop him at all from breaking down the walls that are in front of him. Even in death, that is not his defeat. He dies, yes, but it proves to him that men themselves can transcend fear, because that is what all of this is about. He became a leader because everyone above him was too much of a coward, and he completed his goal. This is what makes him a leader worth remembering, at least in my opinion. Yes, he did not save humanity like he wanted to, but he made them believe that they were worth saving and that they could be saved. He directed them straight to the finish line, and it was up to them to carry the torch. But yeah, guys, what do you think? I know there's a bunch of other leaders in fiction that could be on this list. Aragorn from the Lord of the Rings trilogy comes to mind, because yes, he definitely does belong here. I'm not as familiar. If I'm going to be a bit of a fraud, a bit of a literature fraud for a bit, I did not see Lord of the Rings until 2 years ago. I know that's going to get me kicked out of certain camps, because those movies are indeed peak. And looking at him as a character with the very little analytical prowess I have of him, he seems like the perfect fit, the best leader you could possibly have, because he's somebody who didn't want to be a leader in the first place, so you know he's not going to be corrupted by the power. He showed himself through, of course, a multitude of results that he was the right guy for the job, to the point that there was no other logical strategy than to put him as the guy up front, because any other decision would have led to certain death or them losing very early on. But what do you think? Who are your favorite leaders in fiction? Who would you follow to the gates of Valhalla? Let me know down in the comments down below. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, that's all from me. See you all later. Take care. Deuces. Peace.